Congress told us to go fund ourselves. Well, that was rude. Now, public media needs your help.
The role of public media
is changing.
Support local news that reflects our communities.
These are the most amazing streets in Boston.
Trusted and educational content with no paywalls.
Great problem solving.
And independent journalism that has no barriers.
It's your support that makes this possible.
Help us keep public media truly public. Love it? Fund it.
Please welcome President and CEO of GBH, Susan Goldberg.
Good afternoon, everybody. I believe that telling stories can change the world. It's why I became a journalist and why I joined GBH. You know, at GBH, we tell all kinds of stories, from cradle to cane, for audiences on digital, television, radio, and social platforms, from kids shows to cooking shows, Frontline to Masterpiece, Nova to Antiques Roadshow. We work with millions of teachers nationwide, providing science, history, and civics content for their lesson plans. We cover the news in Boston and across the Commonwealth, and we have a classical station for when people don't want to listen to the news anymore. It might not surprise you that lately, listenership is through the roof. GBH is all about making sure that everyone has access to accurate news and educational programming, no matter your zip code or your tax bracket. Whether you're a kid who doesn't have the opportunity to attend pre-K like half of the children in the United States, or an adult who believes that science and history should be embraced, not erased. That's what we've been doing at GBH for the last 75 years, and we're hoping to do it for at least 75 more. But we're gathered here at a complicated moment for journalism and the pursuit of the truth. Nearly a quarter of Americans live in news deserts, underserved or even totally unserved by news organizations of any type. The First Amendment rights of freedom of speech and freedom of the press are under assault. We're coping with the rise of mis and disinformation, the TikTokification of the attention span, the tyranny of mysterious algorithms, the frightening disappearance of agreed-upon facts, and a lack of trust so profound that many people don't seem to believe anything anymore, not from courts or government or police or scientists or media. As you saw in the video, in July, Congress told us to go fund yourself and clawed back $1.1 billion in federal funding for public media. That led to the closure of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and a direct hit to our bottom line this year of nearly $25 million. But instead of mourning, we're mobilizing. On October 1, the same day that federal funding ended, we launched Fund the Future, GBH's largest and most comprehensive fundraising effort to date. It's an ambitious 3-year initiative to raise $225 million and secure a sustainable future for the organization, ensuring that we continue to deliver trusted journalism, groundbreaking documentaries, and beloved children's programming relied on by nearly 30 million people a year. In short, we're trying to do nothing less than reimagine what public media looks like when public taxpayer funding goes away. So we're working across platforms to create profitable programming that can buttress support from generous individuals, corporations, and foundations for independent journalism and other storytelling that will never make sense from a business perspective, but that matters deeply, like helping kids learn how to read and to do math. This meeting today matters too. There is immense power in coming together to tell our stories, in sharing learnings, and creating new partnerships. This is how we'll reinvent our world toward an abundant future, a world where everyone can thrive. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. This day is off to a great start. I am Patricia Gruits, co-executive director at MASS, but also excited to be your guide on this next session on belonging. The range of voices we'll hear today, from memorialization to peace building, from philanthropy to the arts, from Somalia and Malawi to the Western United States, it reflects the incredible diversity of contexts in which people are working to foster belonging. Belonging is essential to our well-being. It is one of the most fundamental human needs, the need to feel seen, safe, and part of something larger than ourselves. The past few years have tested all of us. We've seen progress stall, rights questions, and entire communities' identities and narratives erased. Fear and scarcity have shaped so much of our public discourse. And in conversations that I've had across sectors with our partners, I've heard many people say that they're keeping their heads down in this moment and are just going to keep moving forward. And that impulse for self-preservation is understandable, but it also hinders our ability to see beyond us. It also hinders our ability to see beyond the needs of our community and can unintentionally lead us to other ourselves from those outside of our cause or our community. At MASS, we have learned that space is never neutral, and our infrastructure determines who moves freely and who is restricted. Our housing and zoning laws reveal who we believe deserves stability. The built environment reflects what we value, showing us who we choose to protect, who we choose to remember, and who or what we've chosen to forget. Belonging doesn't just happen. It won't just happen. It is something we have to design, to nurture and protect in our homes, our institutions, our public spaces, and in our communities. So, let's create a space of belonging with intention right now. I'd like to invite you all to stand up and turn to the person next to you, maybe they're behind you, in front of you, and shake their hand. Shake their hand. Say, I'm up. Apparently you all needed no encouragement. I am so glad you are all here, and I am so glad that we have come together. I hope this session feels like the beginning of an act of radical belonging, a moment to connect across disciplines, across geographies, across stories. It's a moment for us to be curious, to extend generosity, and imagine what abundance looks like when we truly see ourselves in one another. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our first speaker of this session, my colleague and friend, Jadi Amazi. I haven't even introduced her yet. I knew that was going to happen. It's too easy. Jadi is a principal at MASS. She leads our Public Memory and Memorials Lab. She is working with communities to create spaces that remember with honesty and invite action with hope. She is also a spoken word artist, someone who deeply knows that how we tell our stories is just as important as how we build the places that hold them. Now you can welcome Jadi Amazi. Thank you. Thank you. Of course, of course.
Growing up in Boston, I remember listening to my mother and my aunts talk about the marches they joined with their Nana Landrum, the courageous people they knew, the small acts of self-preservation, all that became part of a larger movement. They made history sound alive, close, ours. But when I walked through the city, I very rarely saw those stories represented in central public spaces. The monuments didn't show those histories. They didn't show them, they didn't show me. I was looking for belonging, for placement, for proof that our stories mattered here too. When I returned home from grad school, I was elated to learn that the Faces of Dudley mural had been refurbished and edited to include a portrait of Melnia Cass. I recognized then how much I valued that mural, as it was one of the only pieces of public art that represented the Boston I knew. Now, when I walk through the Boston Common, I see the Embrace. I see the 1965 Freedom Plaza. A few steps away, I see Unbound. Those spaces are not just about representation. They're about repair. I rejoice with pro-Blacks murals. I am grounded in Marca 27's installations, and I respond to Jahari Ortega's invitation to play. They say, you belong. Your story deserves to be told here. You are seen, you are loved. But representation alone is not enough. We're not just telling fuller histories. We're daring to tell aspirational ones, to build monuments not to mythic heroes, but to the ideas that move us to love, to solidarity, to community. In our work through the Public Memory and Memorials Lab, we believe these new monuments don't close the chapter on the past, they open a window to the future. They remind us that belonging is not given once, it is built over and over together. For too long, our commemorative landscape has centered violence, wars, conquests, the folklore of singular heroes. Most of the Civil War memorials were erected decades later in opposition to the Civil Rights Movement. They weren't about memory, they were about control. So what does a contemporary civil rights movement look like? I think it looks like us reclaiming space. It looks like creating places that don't just tell stories of suffering, but affirm our right to belong, to be seen, to heal together. It looks like spaces where our children can run and laugh under the arms of history and feel held by it, not haunted by it. The Snow Country Prison Memorial is a project that tells the story about the interwoven legacies of oppression and resilience of the Native and Japanese American communities. At the opening this past September, many of the descendants reflected on the extent of intergenerational trauma and forced assimilation they had survived. One descendant remarked, "As someone who wasn't in the camps but grew up feeling their impact, I thought this memorial would give me closure." But actually, it goes well beyond that. It feels like a new beginning. This movement isn't only about reinterpreting the past. It's about designing the future we want to live in. Public space can be a form of protest, yes, but it can also be a form of agency. It can remind us that justice is not just the absence of harm. It is the presence of care, of connection, of empathy. The Gun Violence Memorial Project, a national memorial that honors victims of the gun violence epidemic, transforms statistics into stories. The object collection events, the site-specific activations, and each donated personal artifact reclaims humanity from abstraction. As the glass houses travel through cities, museums, and civic spaces, it creates a growing network of solidarity and advocacy, begging the question of what each of us is willing to do to end this uniquely American problem. If the monuments we've inherited were built to preserve power, then the ones we're building now must be about people. They're about belonging. Y'all can snap, that's okay. It's all right. They're about belonging, joy, and the radical act of remembering together. Remembering who we are and summoning who we want to be together. During the unveiling of the Embrace, Yolanda Renee King, granddaughter of Coretta Scott King and Martin Luther King Jr., reflected on how she could see the strength and unity in the sculpture and referred to it as Love 360. On any given visit to the space, I am encouraged by watching the tourists and families and children on field trips walk around the 1965 Freedom Plaza to read the names of local activists who are memorialized within the quilt pattern, some living, some ancestors, as a reminder of the power of our collective action. Since January 2023, the site has become an anchor for vigils, peaceful protests, galvanizing rallies, and legacy celebrations. The form invites participation, not just observation. The undercurrent of love means people don't gather at it, they gather with it. I've come to believe that space, how we move through it, how it receives us, is one of the most powerful tools we have for transformation. A lecture can inform you. A book can persuade you. But space will move you. Right now, we are doing the necessary work of expanding the narratives in the public realm. And in doing so, we are planting seeds that will allow us to harvest a public memory landscape where our collective values flourish. Eventually, the conversation will shift from, can you see me? To what might we do together? So imagine with me for a moment, a monument to migration, a celebration of movement as life itself, a space that transforms the narratives of immigration from crisis to contribution, from fear to flourishing, that honors the creativity, the languages, the cultures that migration brings, and reminds us that diversity is not what divides us, it's what makes us whole. Or imagine a monument to peace, not an abstract symbol, but a living counterpoint to monuments of war, a place that honors diplomats, activists, neighbors, and families who bridge divides every day, that shows us peace is not a moment, it's a commitment, a discipline, a shared act of imagination. And imagine a monument to care, a place that honors the labor of nurses, parents, neighbors, mutual aid networks, and everyone who has held the social fabric together. It would confront the inequities that have defined our systems of health and support, and remind us that care is not charity. It's the foundation of a thriving society. These are not static monuments. They are mirrors for who we are and blueprints for who we might become. We have to remain committed to designing opportunities for new relationships, for nurturing new collective capacities. And don't just look to the horizon. Look to your left, look to your right, look to your neighbors, to your caretakers, to your teachers, your unhoused, your elders, your babies. We have to see one another in order to see an abundant future. Me too.
You did it. Great job. We're going to hear from someone who's helping to shape the future of libraries. Linda Johnson is the president and CEO of the Brooklyn Public Library. Under her leadership, the library has become one of New York City's most vital spaces for civic engagement, intellectual freedom, and community life. Joining her is Moshe Safdie, founding partner of Safdie Architects. An architect, urban planner, and thinker, his 5-decade career has advanced a deeply humane and socially responsible approach to design. Please join me now in welcoming Linda and Moshe.
The new lot avenue down 3 trams. The next and last stop is New Lot Avenue.
My favorite part about East New York is
People.
The families, the community,
mixing
Black culture, Caribbean culture,
a thriving immigrant culture.
I love the resiliency, I love the vibrancy, I love the energy of East New York.
The history of this New Lots Library is incredible. That gravesite across the street, most of it is from our Dutch enslavers. Skank was a Dutch enslaver. Van Sicklin was an enslaver. East New York was built by Africans. Under this library was an African burial ground. That's why this library has to capture that.
We have to be able to tell these truths
and pass them on to the younger children so that they see that they're relevant, that they have power as well.
And the library can create that space where you learn about what happened, but also can be the forum to continue organizing.
And this library is going to be the center of a liberating cultural hub for the people of East New York.
It should be a beacon.
The social space.
An incubator space.
A collective space.
A welcoming space.
A safe space. A historical place.
It should be an environment that invites someone
to help build a better, stronger East New York.
I guess I'll begin with a few images to orient the discussion. I want to talk about belonging and the public realm, or we'll discuss the subject. I have a few images of institutional buildings, each one an opportunity to expand the public realm, and each also in a sense of belonging, uniquely designed, that grows out of the circumstances, the culture, the program of the place. Salt Lake City Library, at the heart of downtown, has a roof garden, which is a park for the public. They can access it through this ramped walkway without even entering the library. It has grounds around it all designed for great public gatherings, performances, which you see here. And it's got a new invention, an urban room, a place which is of the library, but also of the city. It's open 18 hours a day. It has all kinds of gatherings and programming. It's an extension of the city. In Vancouver, a library that preceded Salt Lake, where the idea of the urban room first was born. Also, we proposed a roof park, a reading garden. They said, oh, we can't do that. We have too much drugs around here. 20 years later, after we opened it, they came back and they said, we want that reading garden. So there it is, the reading garden, which was implemented later, and the urban room with its many activities. Performing Arts Center, the Kaufman Performing Center in Kansas City, again, an opportunity to really expand the public realm, a lobby that's part of the city, filled with activities, both for performances, but just the citizens at large. And in Jerusalem, a bridge between all the communities, all of them gathering from all directions of the city, the only place in the city, the Mamilla Center, where everybody gathers, shops, celebrates, dances. National Gallery of Canada, again, an extension of the city into the building, a great hall and gardens, all part of the city at large. And in Singapore, a very large complex that fulfills the idea of the Urban Renewal Authority, a great agency that is devoted to enhancing the public realm, to make the waterfront the most active place continuously around the bay, which you see here with the thousands of people enjoying the city. And finally, trying to demonstrate that the public realm can be everywhere, even in an airport, and you can integrate parks and shopping and gardens, a place of great gathering and celebrations that attracts hundreds of thousands of people every week.
Well, first, just thank you to everybody at Mass for organizing such a wonderful gathering of people who are smart and already committed to this work. Moshe and I have been talking about public space for, 15 years at least. And he really introduced me the first time to this thinking as I was looking at the urban rooms that had been designed as part of these libraries, in particular at Salt Lake. I guess that's the one that stands out in my mind most. But I think the notion that a space that is inspiring, not just a place that keeps you warm in the winter and cool in the summer, and that the roofs are, tight, that the books are not getting wet when it rains. That's such a sort of bare minimum. And unfortunately, so many of the libraries were built just sort of with that in mind as a way to get service into every neighborhood in the community. So it was a great start. But the mission that we're trying to reach at Brooklyn Public Library is how to build spaces that elevate not only the community, but the individuals as well. So people can do their best thinking and their best work, and that the community as a whole is proud of the library that's in their neighborhood. And so I think especially since COVID, neighborhoods changed, people's relationships with each other's changed. There was sort of a groundswell of this notion that everybody belonged in a library, and sort of homemade signs started to crop up about that, and we embraced it fully. But the real sort of pinnacle of all this work is, in fact, the New Lots Library that we just saw a video about, a place that's been neglected, and a place where we can make a really huge difference by not only providing all the services we provide, literacy-based, but by providing this beacon and a memorial to some of the unfortunate historical moments in those on those streets. So I guess before I turn it over to Moshe, I would say that building space that elevates the community at large, individuals, and also all of us who work in the buildings is really a critical part of the mission of the library. And it has to be done in a way that is tangible and real. And funny for me to say this, somebody who's so committed to words, but not just talk.
Well, we've been at it. I think the question, first of all, I would say, what makes a building belong? I think it begins with the site, really deciphering the secrets of the site, as I like to call it, to understand the program, to immerse yourself in the program. If it's a school, what's a wonderful place for learning, for students, for the faculty. If it's a library, how do you make it feel inviting, open, I'd say seductive? How do you create spaces for large groups and small groups to gather, to work? How do you choose materials? What's the impact of the culture of the place? Our practice is across many cultures. When we did the Museum of the Sikhs in the Punjab, spent a lot of time learning about Sikhism. That was not a culture that I knew. And the proof of the success is in the way that it was possessed by the people of the Punjab once it was built. The ultimate test of belonging is in the embrace of the users.
Yeah.
Not in what the architect has in mind, not what he thinks they should think, but what they feel about their building.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it sort of is at the root of the work that we're doing. We always have really comprehensive sessions with community members before we even start to listen to what our patrons want in their library. And then to figure out how to translate that into the buildings that we're building or the renovations that we're doing. That's definitely step one. The other critical thing, and I haven't heard that much about it today, but it's a big challenge to embark on a project that is, encouraging belonging, inspiration, all the things we're striving to do today, but to think about the fact that that building is going to be providing services for another 100 and some years. And we know that because we have 18 Carnegie libraries in our system that were built about 130 years ago that we're still operating and trying to take good care of because they're important architecturally and historically. But how do you think about a building today, given what we know about the technological changes that have changed the way that we consume information, and what will it look like 50, 100 years from now? What will technology bring? And so this mantra of flexibility is part of what we talk about, how to build spaces that are hospitable to the ways people are learning and working today, but will also be able to be used in the future.
I think that the connection between the public realm and cultural buildings is profound because we come from a culture where most public buildings were kind of set back, intimidating. Think of the National Gallery in Washington that was built, I guess, in the 30s. I'm talking about the original structure. It's opaque. You can't see into the building. It has powerful colonnades. I think that's true of libraries. The Free Library in Philadelphia is such a building. It sits on a great big circle, but it's intimidating. It's opaque again. The question is, how do we transform that in the 21st century? How do we, I don't mean transform those buildings, but how do, when we design new institutions, devise those, I'd call them elements of design which create transparency, which create a sense of invitation to enter, which tells you of the life going on in the building from the city and vice versa. When we designed the National Gallery of Canada, we had two alternatives, two alternative schemes. One was quite an opaque building. You circulated within. The gallery faced the city, which had opaque walls, and then the Great Hall. This is one of the buildings I showed. The other alternative was called the extrovert version, totally glass-fronted, the walkway up and into the Great Hall, totally open to the city. It's like an open book. We had to present these to the cabinet, and I remember the Prime Minister saying, "This is a cold city. We're a new generation of people. Extrovert it will be," and transform the city as it became kind of a gathering space well beyond the function of a National Gallery.
So, this thing about intimidating public buildings is very real. At the Central Library in Brooklyn, which sits on Grand Army Plaza, Prospect Park is on one side, the Brooklyn Botanic Garden is on the other, and it is majestic. But if you are new to this country, if you're concerned about your status here, your economic status, as well as your immigration status, it is a very intimidating building to walk in. And so we're working on renovations as well as new projects and trying to figure out how to make them more inviting. Some of that is really difficult. And I think as important as architecture is to all of these initiatives, it's really the programming also. And I said earlier, you have to do more than just talk the talk. We really are building programs that are speaking the message. It's better to see a program about Jay-Z than to hear a middle-aged white woman talking about the fact that everybody belongs in the building. And so, so we've really focused on programs all over the borough because Brooklyn is a very, very diverse place. We provide services in over 100 languages. We do story time in 30 different languages. And so the trick is to figure out what belongs in which library and how to make those libraries really feel like a place for the very people who live nearby, as well as a place where people of all generations can rub shoulders with each other regardless of their backgrounds. And it's really one of the things we talk about is really recreating in an urban environment the town square where people can just really sit down and learn about their neighbors.
I think what I would add to this is what are the subtle elements that make a space work? Whether it's an urban piazza in front of the Brooklyn Library, whether it's a street arrangement, what are the things to be sensitive to? Plant life, trees, the quality of light. Where does the sun come from? What is shaded and what is unprotected, and how much protection from the elements to provide, and what happens at winter, and what happens at summer, and what happens in between. And whether you're in a building that faces a public space or whether you're actually designing the public space, these subtle elements are amazing. You walk around European cities and you see a little cafe here and you see another one on the other side. One is filled with people, the other one is empty.
Yeah.
And you then start realizing this one is on the south side, it's got a shade, it's got some light, this has a beautiful tree next to it. And so I think this is, I could call it almost the science of what makes a place uplifting and habitable and attractive versus one that is wanting. And at the end, it's to me always light when you're in the building, daylight. I think every space in the building should have daylight. Every working space where people spend 8 hours a day, every office building should have no one working without daylight. It's just the element of life that since we invented air conditioning, architects have been denying to the public at large.
Well, I couldn't agree more about the light issue. I am working right now in a cubicle that has absolutely no natural light. So I know what it feels like, but that's okay. It's like the cobbler whose kids don't have shoes. I want to make sure everybody else has light. And I, first of all, thank you for all that I've learned from you over these years about a lot of these issues. But really, in terms of elevating the communities that we serve, I think at the root of it is the people who care enough about their neighborhoods to really listen. I said this earlier, but there's nothing like a member of the community to learn about what that community needs. As expert as we all think we might be, because we've done it before, because we're consulting with the foremost experts in the country on these issues, it is really critical to pay attention to what we're hearing on the streets.
What do you think of community consultation? How has it worked for you?
Yeah, it's a challenge because once you give everybody the opportunity to tell you what they want, you have to decide what you can deliver because there's just no way to deliver it all. And so I think it's important that people feel like they're being heard. In Brooklyn, the local elected officials are very heavy-handed in this regard, in a way that's good. They're doing their jobs, and then it's our job to kind of come up with a scheme that satisfies as many people as we can, but always staying true to who we are. So New Lots is a great example of this, where there were elected officials in the community who wanted a museum as part of the library. There were people who wanted all kinds of things that really aren't connected to literacy or to what the mission of the library is. And so it took some time and some creativity to decide what to keep, what not to keep, and how to present it in a way that everybody felt good about where we landed. And I will say that one of the most challenging people that we were dealing with, an elected official who had been in the community for at least 50 years, and very powerful there, when he saw a rendering, in fact, the renderings that you saw earlier today, he dropped the water bottle that he was holding because he was so overwhelmed by what we had presented. We promised to deliver a beacon in the neighborhood, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen.
We've devised the mechanism for flushing this out. The the programs that you get from the client, mostly these are quantitative.
Mm-hmm.
We need 5 classrooms.
Yeah, we have that
such
too.
and such a
So we have
size.
a community room that has a certain amount of seats in it. Yeah.
And very flexible. You can divide it to 16 rooms. You can have one big room, and so on and so forth. Very, very rarely is there a qualitative statement about it. So what we have been doing in these circumstances is creating a qualitative program. So we say, yes, 5 classrooms. They should have daylight. They should be open. They should, to the view, the sun should not penetrate, but there should be gentle light. When we go through the building, just talking about qualitative issues, materials, character, and then we present that to the client.
Mm-hmm.
And then so we have 2 programs, qualitative and quantitative. When we start merging those, there's a chance that something good will come out of it.
Yeah.
At least it creates a discussion about what's important.
Yeah, the discussion is really important. I think rolling up your sleeves with somebody before it's fully baked is a really important gesture. And in New Lots in particular, there was a lot of concern about the site and the sanctity of the site, the fact that it was possible that people had been buried there. And the real issue was, we have a pretty substantial pot of money that we're working with. How much of it do you want to spend on history and archaeology versus what you want to spend to build to uplift the community today and for years in the future? And it's not hard, actually, as it turned out, to make a really persuasive argument about, what the money could do for time immeasurable.
Well, we're having fun with one little restoration.
Yeah, Moshe and I are working on a project in the very oldest library in Brooklyn, the oldest existing library in Brooklyn. I think there was 1 or 2 that got knocked down along the way. But a Carnegie Library in the midst of a bustling area at 4th and Pacific, which is right, for those of you who know New York, right near the Barclays Center and a lot of big hulking buildings. And it's the library that needs the most love, and we're doing that, right? We're creating a whole new...
What's interesting is, as you look at the original plans and photographs of the original building, you then see 100 years of abuse, and all we're doing is going back to what they had done 100 years ago, which was quite wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, when you're working in old buildings, it's really true. Neglect is actually a great thing. It's the interventions that can sometimes really muck things up, right? And this building is a perfect example of that. I mean, fluorescent lights in, circular shapes and all kinds of really nutty things. But it probably wasn't a great building to begin with, right? I mean, we're going to make it great.
Elegant building.
In major cities, rising costs and congestion are driving folks to look elsewhere. Smaller cities offer lower costs, walkable streets, a closer connection to nature, and room to grow. But also history that holds wounds, shuttered factories that left polluted land and water, highways that split neighborhoods, and disinvestment that stalled the dreams of people and placemaking. How can these places welcome those moving in without displacing those who never left? Design can heal, not by starting from scratch, but by rediscovering and reimagining what has been overlooked. Meet Poughkeepsie, a small city on New York's Hudson River with a rich industrial past. Like hundreds of others, Poughkeepsie is a fringe city, not urban, not rural, but something in between. Brimming with possibilities, Poughkeepsie is the pilot. From 10 years embedded on Main Street, the Fringe City Design Lab at Mass has worked alongside local community leaders, residents, and government to materialize their ideas. An old trolley barn has been transformed to become a vibrant center for youth arts. A once polluted factory has become a regenerative neighborhood hub with recreational, educational, and commercial spaces. The forgotten industrial creek can become a public blueway that reconnects the city to nature, and an emptied underground water cistern can become a unique acoustic vessel for performances. Mass has invested over $3 million in design services to unlock over $80 million of construction, all within a single-mile radius. Together, these projects demonstrate what's possible through a flexible model of working, rooted in care, built through partnership, and adaptable to any community. This isn't just about Poughkeepsie. It's a blueprint for every overlooked city ready to reimagine.
What we just saw in Poughkeepsie is a reminder that transformation grows out of communities, people working together, drawing on shared resourcefulness and imagination. Our next speaker comes from a place far from here, but with a story rooted in that same collective spirit. William Kamkwamba is the innovator whose journey inspired the book and the film, The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. Today, through Moving Windmills Project, he partners with communities across Malawi to expand opportunities for agency and belonging for young people. Please put your hands together for William.
Thank you. It's such a great honor to be here this afternoon. I grew up in a very small farming community in Malawi. Farming, it's not an easy job in Malawi. There are a number of things that makes farming very difficult. One of it is the weather, the price of seeds, the price of fertilizer. So each and every growing season, farmers have to look up on that. If one of that challenge occurs, as a farmer, you can't harvest enough. In 2000 to 2001 growing season, we experienced some drought. As the result of that drought, crop didn't do well. People only harvested quarter amount of what they were hoping. That meant that they had to live up on that quarter amount of food for the entire year until the next harvesting season, which was very difficult to majority of the people. People ran out of food very quickly, including my family, was badly affected by the situation. At that time, some people that I knew passed because of the hunger. My family was even badly affected. We had to eat 1 meal per day so that small amount of food that we had could last us until the next growing season. At that time, the biggest challenge was that I was supposed to study high school. High school in Malawi, you have to pay for it. Because of the situation, my parents didn't have money to pay for my tuition. I was forced to draw out of school. When I had to draw out of school, I looked at my father and those dry fields. That wasn't the future that I could accept it. I didn't want to become like him. I didn't want to become a farmer. It's not that I didn't want to become a farmer because I hate farming. No, I love farming. But I didn't want to become a farmer because of the circumstances, which is the case of majority. They are not farmers by choice. They are farmers because of the circumstances. Their only hope is to grow enough food to feed their families, and if they have surplus, they can be able to sell and send their kids to school. That life wasn't the life that I wanted. I thought that if I can have an education, I can be able to do many things that I want to do with my life, that they can help out with my family, my community, or my country in general. So when I couldn't go to school, I started thinking, what can I do in order to continue with my studies? I decided to start going to the library to read books, textbooks that they were using in school. When I was reading those textbooks, I was hoping that when the hunger would be over and my parents would find the money, they would send me back to school. I didn't want to be behind. So reading those textbooks and also copying notes from my friends who were still going to school at that time. And I got also interested into reading science books. I got interested into science books because I was curious growing up when I was younger. I didn't want to understand how things work. I used to ask people, how does the car work? They say, you put in gas, you start the engine, and you drive up there. I know that. But how does that turn the engine to run? Nobody could tell me. So when I started going to the library, I was more of like trying to understand different things in terms of science. Even though at that time I couldn't speak English very well, and most of the words, we don't have direct translation into my language. I'll ask the librarian to explain to me through imagination and image, I was able to understand electromagnetics. That's when I found another book that had pictures of the windmill. When I read, they say windmill to pump water and generate electricity. The word pump water attracted my attention. I decided to build the windmill, even though I didn't have money to buy parts that I needed for my windmill. And the book didn't say what parts you need. So I ended up going to the junkyard just next to the same high school that I just dropped from to pick up parts that I needed for my windmill. When I was doing that, a lot of people were laughing at me, including my mother. She was very worried of me. She thought that I was going crazy. She said, "You are no longer going to find a wife because no one wants to marry a crazy man." Regardless, I was able to build the windmill, but I didn't stop going to the library. One day when I was at the library, the librarian asked me, "Why do you check out the same book?" I explained to her that the book inspired me to build a windmill. She wanted to see it. She came, she saw it. But a few weeks later, the organization that started different libraries, they were visiting all the libraries to see how people were using them. When they told them about my work, they were also interested to see it. They came to my village, they saw it, and they came again. They brought some journalists. One of the journalists wrote the article about my windmill, and that article was picked up by one of the guys who was organizing the TED conference. I was invited to attend the TED conference where I spoke very briefly, and the people asked me, "How can we help you?" I said, "I want to continue with my work, but also want to continue with my studies." So I was able to go back to school. I went to school in South Africa for 2 years. After there, I went to Dartmouth College, where I graduated in 2014. Throughout the time, also one thing that my mentor helped me to start was the Moving Windmills organization, where we are doing a lot of projects to solve some of the problems that people were facing in Malawi. But one of the questions that people keep asking me, "What do you wish you had when you were building your windmill?" I said, "I wish if I had a space and also tools that I could be able to use and mentorship to help me to build that windmill. That could have made my life much easier." So when I was at Dartmouth, I was working at the machine shop, seeing the tools that we had there, designing parts of engineering students that they are doing parts of their engineering. It was much easier for that. If I had this in Malawi, I could do much more, which is a lot of people in Malawi, they have like an idea, but they don't have space, young people, that they can be able to use to bring their ideas to life. So to me, I believe that talent is universal, but opportunities are not. So if you can give young people an opportunity to design solutions to the problem that they are facing in their communities, you'll be amazed what they can come up with. We did a pilot project to solve the problem that the peanut farmer faces. So in that competition, we had interest from high school students and also from college graduates. But one of the winners was an elementary school student who designed a simple thing to pluck peanuts. When I looked at that, I say, like, there's so many young people, if you give them the opportunity, they'll be able to come up with so many. That's what we are now wanting to build an innovation center, a space where we're going to bring young people from all over Malawi to design a solution to everyday's challenge in agriculture, in energy. It really kills me to live in the country where 90% of the population are farmers, but each and every year we struggle to feed our population. So we want to be able to design that. I'm very happy that we are working with the MAS to design that innovation center that we can bring it to life. When I look back from the time I started my work to where I am, I faced so many challenges that would have simply stopped me from achieving what I have achieved. But one thing that I tell myself always, challenges, they are not always there to stop you from achieving your goals, but they are there to strengthen you, to make you grow in everything that you do. In life, no matter who you are, we face some challenges. My challenge might be different from your challenge and somebody's challenge, but one thing that I know is that if you want to get from point A to point B, if you know where that point B is, you can always be able to get there. Sometimes you have to climb over obstacles, sometimes you have to go around. So I know that the journey to get this innovation center, it's wrong. But with a great team, we'll be able to get there. I hope you'll be able to join us in order to get this dream to reality. Thank you for allowing me to share my story with you this afternoon. It's a little great honor. Thank you.
We had been living in this place as long as anybody could remember.
This is where our ancestors were, and I have that connection to the land and the community.
It feels like it's the last place for us to be Lakota. Our DNA is unique to this area.
We now live in a data economy.
From all the extraction that has happened before, be it land, oil, water, this is just another battle to prevent the exploitation and extraction of resources from places like this.
It's important for tribes and indigenous people to have control and agency over where data goes, because
we're going to be trying to find cures for diseases that affect Native people differently.
Using data that's by us, for us.
The Native Biodata Consortium, or the NBDC, is a safe and secure place to store both biological samples and the data derived from them so that it can be used by Native researchers or researchers that have no affiliation with Native peoples.
As a Native organization, we're the first ones doing it solely without interference from the outside. Biological data without context is almost worthless. It's the first ever biorepository with data added, because usually biorepositories just hold the samples.
We need to start shifting a lot of the paradigms.
We want researchers to come here and feel the impact.
Currently, our space is limited. The community isn't able to interact with their data on how it is impacting their future and their current lives. With a bigger space where community is able to interact with researchers and how their data is being processed, we can show the potential that we have. So we need a campus that secures data and biodiversity so that Native people have a place to safely store their data. We need a campus that bridges generations through spaces that facilitate knowledge exchange so that more Native people can engage in this type of work. We need a campus that establishes multi-sensorial connections back to the land to remind people of the importance of investing in places like Cheyenne River. We need a campus that invites its target audiences to engage with their data as they choose so that we can change the paradigm around data sovereignty.
Data is currency now. Reservations or tribal communities represent new data that didn't exist before.
And we need a campus that redirects resources through its construction and operation back into the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe so that we're catalyzing our local economy in ways that add value.
The Native Biodata Consortium would be successful just by building the campus. There's not another campus proposed or built like it in Indian country. Building that building isn't where we stop. That's just the beginning.
We're also thinking of scaling that across the region, internationally. That's what I'm looking forward to, is the replicability of the programs we're creating today and what that could look like for the next generations.
The Native Biodata Campus reminds us that belonging starts when people have the power to protect their stories and imagine their own future. Our next speaker, Mohamed Ali Diini, is an advocate for what he calls the trauma tax, the invisible drag that holds back talent, possibility, and imagination in communities around the world. Through Iftin Global, he's shown that when people heal, they don't just feel better, they unlock potential, opportunity, and dignity. Please welcome Mohamed. Great job.
So I was born in Mogadishu, Somalia, and I fled when I was 9 years old to escape civil war. I grew up in America, Columbus, Ohio, trained to be a lawyer and had my life planned out ahead of me. But I always felt this pull back home to see the country of my birth. And 12 years ago, I went back for the first time. And what I saw really shocked me. The streets where I used to play football were rubble. I saw young people standing on street corners with nothing to do. Childhood friends who never left, living in tin shacks. I returned to a country that had been devastated by 30 years of civil war. But I also saw something else, enormous potential. Young people with extraordinary resilience, surviving impossible circumstances. And I thought to myself, I can help. I can help rebuild Somalia by giving these young people the economic opportunities that they desperately needed. So I started a jobs program, skills training, microfinance, entrepreneurship. We started one of the largest workforce development programs in the country. And we worked with thousands of young people across Somalia. The logic was very simple. Give young people economic opportunity, and they won't join armed groups. They won't flee the country. They'll stay and actually rebuild their country. I was wrong. Youth kept dropping out of our classes. Businesses they started would fail. They did not stay in the jobs we actually gave them. And those who did stay used their savings to illegally migrate and pay smugglers to go to countries that could provide them better livelihoods. I couldn't understand it. So one day I sat down with a young man who was about to be dropped off out of one of our classes. His name was Liban. And I asked him the most important question I can think of. Why? Why are you giving up? Why aren't you showing up? And he told me his uncle, who raised him from birth, had been killed in a checkpoint a few months before. His family lived in a refugee camp outside of Mogadishu. And every day, Liban traveled 2 hours to get to our to our training center through security checkpoints that reminded him of his uncle's death. And at that point, I thought to myself, how can I demand his attention? How can I ask him to focus on financial forecasting when he's trying to process deep-seated trauma? When every day he's just focused on surviving until the next day. And Liban wasn't alone. We studied our students across the country, and we found over 30% had clinical signs of PTSD, levels you'll see in soldiers returning from combat. 70% were suffering from anxiety disorders, nightmares, panic attacks, paralyzing fear. They'd seen bombings destroy their neighborhoods, watched family members killed, survived famine and displacement. And they lived in constant fear of losing everything at any moment. And I realized we didn't have an economic opportunity problem or skills problem. We had a trauma problem. So we were faced with an important question. How do you create belonging in a country where the entire population has only known violence, where people have learned to protect themselves instead of trusting each other, or even trusting in the opportunities that I'm trying to give them? And until a few years ago, I thought I understood the impact of trauma until one of our clinicians told me something very important. Trauma damages the part of our brain that allows us to imagine. It actually shrinks it. And I want you to think about that for a moment. To plan for the future, you must first be able to picture it, to imagine it. To see yourself running that business a year from now, you're using your imagination. To picture yourself belonging to something larger, a community, a purpose, a future worth building toward, you're using your imagination. And when trauma damages that capacity, you can't plan, you can't connect, so you give up. Liban couldn't imagine a future beyond surviving the checkpoints each day. He couldn't imagine belonging to anything beyond his grief. Young people in Somalia join terrorist organizations because they can't imagine a different path. They flee the country because they could not imagine belonging in it. So you see, we weren't just fighting poverty or a lack of skills. We were fighting a failure of imagination, a failure of collective imagination. So we completely changed everything. We redesigned our entire program. We made mental health foundational to every single thing that we do. So one of the first group of students that was in our new program was a young man named Hassan, a former child soldier. When he first came to us, he couldn't make eye contact. His hands shook in rooms with other people. So we didn't start with job training. We started with healing circles. 8 young men, 1 counselor, sitting together once a week. The counselor taught them to name what they felt, to recognize when trauma was making their decisions, to sit with the panic instead of running away from it. For weeks, Hassan barely spoke. Then another young man shared his story, and Hassan opened up about being forcefully recruited, about his first night as a soldier. And here's what we learned. You cannot restore imagination alone. Imagination is inherently social. We imagine futures with people, not just for ourselves. In that circle, Hassan found space to belong, to trust, to believe he could be something beyond survival. His hands stopped shaking. He could picture himself a year from now running a business. So we trained him in brick making, and we helped him heal, and we gave him a loan to start up a business. And Hassan did something we didn't really expect. He went back to the compounds where young fighters were still trapped. Over the course of a year, he helped 67 of them defect from the terrorist organization. 67. He helped those 67 defect because he was living proof that you could belong to something beyond violence. And we didn't stop with Hassan. We scaled this model across the country in mechanic shops, in schools, in local businesses. Healing went hand in hand with economic opportunity. And we reached over 300,000 community members across Somalia. And initially, I thought the change was going to be around mental health. We saw a decrease in anxiety and depression. But something extraordinary happened. 98% of young people stayed in their jobs after 1 year. Before trauma healing, that was 60%. And this is what really stunned me the most. Not a single person who went through trauma healing illegally migrated. Not a single one. And that's what happens when you rebuild the capacity to imagine. So over the past 10 years, we've achieved these results in spaces that were never really designed for healing, buildings scarred by war, rooms that were built for function, not really for safety or care. So a few years ago, we partnered with Mass Design to answer a simple question. Could a building heal a community? Could architecture create the conditions for communities to restore what trauma has torn apart? Our answer was the Peace Hub, Somalia's first center designed for collective healing, where young people heal together in circles, learn trades together, in rooms designed for collaboration, where architecture itself says, you belong here. Your future is being built here. You're ready to build it with you. And then our funding was cut when USAID was shut down. And I've come to understand that the crisis of imagination isn't just in Somalia. It's anywhere people, leaders, communities, and institutions can't see beyond the immediate to imagine the future. So today I'm asking you to imagine a future where healing goes hand in hand with economic opportunity. I want you to imagine a future where a building can heal a community from trauma. I want you to join me in imagining a future where this center actually exists. Because over the years, I've realized I'm not in the business of entrepreneurship or skills building or even mental health. I'm in the business of repairing imagination, helping young people imagine better futures and partnering with them to make it a reality. Because when you repair imagination, you restore belonging. And when people belong to something larger than survival, they don't just transform themselves, they build with everyone around them. When millions build together, that's how we create the abundance young people deserve. So join me today. Let's use our collective imagination to imagine a better future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mohamed. Thank you for the extraordinary work that you're leading. Your message is a reminder that healing is not abstract, it's relational. The African philosophy of Ubuntu feels like a really powerful word to summarize this session. Ubuntu means I am because we are. I am because we are. Our humanity is bound up in one another's. To belong is not to blend in or assimilate. It's to recognize our interconnectedness, to see abundance where others see division, and to believe that a future where we all thrive is possible. Now, to wrap up this session, we're going to watch a film about the ongoing efforts to reclaim and retell the story of the Northern Cheyenne Healing Trail. After the short film, we'll be treated to a performance by the Iron River Singers, a Northern-style powwow singing group from the New England region.
Robinson Takista.
You know, they weren't coming back to Montana for gold or money. Oh, the old men, the old people talked about the pine trees, how they go back and forth like they're dancing, making noise. That's what they talked about. That's what they missed. So they were determined they were going to come home.
Our ancestors, the Northern Cheyenne, they had been captured in the Nebraska Sandhills and brought to Fort Robinson, and had just been told after staying there for about 3 months that they were going to be returned south, where they knew that they would eventually all die from starvation or disease. They opted to break out, either to live in their homeland or to die in their homeland.
It was really, really cold. I heard about from the old people when I was young.
They didn't have a map, you know. All they were moccasins, no jackets, just thin shawls.
Just thinking about how thirsty they were when it broke out and being fired upon and carrying babies, and it was hard.
But they were willing to come home. They were on their way home.
They were saying, don't ever give up.
I wanted that personal experience of what our ancestors went through. So I wore my moccasins only, and I trekked through that snow. And it was so powerful, and it made me cry. It still makes me cry.
When they broke out of the barracks and they ran upstream, their first goal was to try to find horses at a ranch running for their lives. About 35 of them were able to make it up this steep chasm here at nighttime with about 6 to 8 inches of snow, essentially their plan B. When I look down at this today, it's a very emotional experience. And so the Northern Cheyenne Healing Trail, which will be an interpretive trail to commemorate their actions. We want to gather stories, remember what they went through, and share that with generations to come.
The concept of the trail is healing through a ceremonial journey. So you have the main 4 reflection points. The first is for the people. The second is for the children. The third is for the women. And then the fourth is a place for the chiefs.
In the ceremony we do right now on the 9th, we
walk up to the monument, but we stopped 4 times. So we wanted to include that in the trail because it reflects our Cheyenne culture.
Because we're still here. There's more to us than the story that stopped from another perspective.
And we get to tell it in our voice. And that's what's so important.
Love this land. It's a beautiful place. Everything in it, our ancestors wanted us to have it. They wanted us to have the change of the seasons. They wanted us to have clean air. They knew how to use the plants. They knew how to treat their sicknesses. And they knew how to make each other better. As a teacher, I try to convey that same feeling to my students, encouraging them to listen to the wind and to listen to the song of the pine.
We grew from these few people, you know. We're kind of a big tribe now.